Look, the reality is it's been a very bitter and divisive contest following on from Boris Johnson being thrown out, basically, by his own party. And that tends to leave quite a lot of bad blood there. I think the reality is that, though, the one thing that will be in Liz Truss's favour is that the general election is probably a couple of years away, and that is really going to concentrate minds. If there's a real danger of Labour really pushing through and winning a general election, I think that will concentrate a lot of minds in terms of unity.
Yeah, and how likely is that? Because, of course, as I was putting to tomorrow, there is a feeling that whatever cabinet does come in place could well be one of the most right-wing sort of cabinets that we've seen in the Conservative government.
I think that's right. I think there will be a lot of people in the Conservative Party who are nervous about the economic policies that are being taken here. And there's going to have to be a big persuasion job. I think part of the job in number 10, particularly the Chief of Staff role, is to actually liaise with MPs and make sure that there's proper communication going on. And I think that that part of the operation is going to be absolutely crucial, making sure that number 10 is very, very clearly talking to backbenchers, is very clear on where the issues are, and making sure that there are good relations there.
And the Chief of Staff, we think, might well be Wendy Morton for Liz Truss. I mean, how do you expect the operation in there to be run differently if it's Liz Truss who does win?
I think that what she's got to do is very clearly, after 3 years of Boris Johnson, he had a number of iterations of number 10, and all of them really were a bit of a mess. They struggled to actually have unity. What she's got to do is make clear, look, this is our strategy, these are our goals. Everybody needs to know exactly what their position is, and they all need to be pushing in the same directions. Previous number 10s, one of the things that we did when David Cameron was in charge was make sure that we were very, very clear on message. We all stuck together. We didn't brief against each other. What you've tended to see in recent years in politics is an endless stream of commentary, a running commentary on what the government's doing. I think that they need to stop doing that and stop being in a position where they're effectively campaigning all the time and demonstrating that they're governing. The number one exam question that they face at the moment is, what are you going to do about the energy crisis? How are you going to get struggling Britons through this winter? And they need to have a complete laser focus on that.
Are you the one who came up, Craig Oliver, with this idea of Liz Truss being a Cameron Cutie? You remember that from 2012? Was that you?
I'm afraid I would never say anything so sexist. Liz Truss, is a bright, capable, engaged person. She's a woman in her own right. You'd never say such a thing about a man. I think, pretty offensive. Look, she...
Sorry, Craig Oliver, the point I'm making is that was the name of the list of women who were put forward, wasn't it?
That was the name.
They were called Cameron Cuties. And you were Director of Comms.
I don't want to, look, I'm sorry. I'd love to think that as Director of Comms that I could control you guys and get you to come up with all the phrases I wanted. Of course, I'd never use such a phrase, and I never would. It's a terrible phrase. But anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole. She's a capable woman. She's clear. She's made it to the top of the Conservative Party. She's going to be Prime Minister. She's got the toughest in tray of all time. And it's going to be an extraordinary challenge for her. The big difference for her is the difference between going from campaign mode to governing. And she's got to demonstrate, I would say, very, very quickly that she's got a grip on the energy crisis and that she's going to make that work.
I thought from you on the diversity that we're seeing at the top of the Conservative Party now, it'd be the third female Prime Minister. We've got black people in serious offices of state as well. The Labour Party, Steve Reid, basically swerves this question. I mean, it does say something about the Conservative Party at this point to have a makeup of office like that.
I think that that's one thing that David Cameron really can take credit for, is that he was very clear that when he became leader of the Conservative Party, that it was far too weighted towards middle-aged white men of a certain educational background. And he pushed really, really hard with the A-list. And I think that the results of that, the fruits of that, were actually in the early stages of this campaign for the new leader. You saw a lot of people from ethnic minorities, a lot of women putting themselves forward. And I think that's a very positive thing.
I mean, you mentioned a change in style from if Liz Truss wins to Boris Johnson. Do you expect to see that office of the Prime Minister that was brought in under Johnson? Do you expect to see that either be got rid of or changed in some way?
Look, I think that she's going to have to run number 10 differently. She's going to have to be absolutely crystal clear that it is a very, very almost militaristic operation if it's to be successful. She's got an in-tray that is flowing out the door, and on top of that, the energy crisis as well. So unless there is absolute clarity of purpose and absolute clarity of what the roles are and how everything is operating, it's not going to work. So I think there needs to be an iron discipline. There needs to be a clear reality that we actually have to start delivering. 2 years years is not a long time in political terms, really, towards the next election. And she's got to get some runs on the board. She's well behind in terms of, the polling at the moment and in terms of who's the best on most issues. And she's got to turn that around quickly against very, very significant headwinds.
And from the team you've seen who have been suggested as being around Liz Truss if she does win it, do you expect to see an iron discipline from them, or we're just going to see them campaigning continually?
Well, look, I hope that they will understand that, that they've been through a campaign. It's necessary to use campaigning tactics and win. And that when they're in there, they understand that there is a big difference between that and governing. There are trade-offs. There are choices to be made. The most important thing is to make sure that you are educating the public very, very clearly in what you're doing and why you're doing it and what the difficulties are going to be. I think in politics that a lot of politicians recently shied away from the difficulties of telling people, leveling with people. And I think the British public showed during coronavirus, when they're leveled with, they react very, very well and very positively. I think Liz Truss will probably level much more clearly with the public, but she's got to deliver.